But thanks again for joining and seeing what's new with Nitro. We do run this monthly workshop to go over what we've released with Nitro, with new features that have come out, some things we've been working on. We're constantly working on new stuff, constantly working on things. We get a lot of this as feedback from our customers. So if there's something you want to see in there, certainly let us know. There's if you have any questions on the content, there's a question box that you can enter your question into. So certainly feel free to use that as well. We do want this to be interactive. So appreciate any feedback you guys have on anything new features that you might want to see. But yeah, so we'll go ahead and I'm gonna make myself presenter and I'll show my screen. And we're gonna dive right into the content that we have for you today. And we've actually released quite a few things, but there's a lot of it's a little, I guess, a little tricky to show because a lot of it's through some of the JavaScript options they have. Again, it's like UI. If you have been on these workshops in the past few weeks, you've certainly, or past few months, you certainly heard us say over and over again, we're doing a lot with the UI, with the different things that you can see, different options you have, and if there's any areas, again, if there's any areas you're seeing that you'd like to have a little more control over, let us know, and we'll see if we can get that incorporated into our program. One other note before we go too far, I do apologize. I did take some cold medicine right before, a while before this workshop started, so I do my voice is a little more nasally than usual, and I apologize for that. So it's just suddenly it came back, and my sinuses filled up, and so we'll bear with me there. Hopefully, I won't have any sneezing fits during the workshop. But I will promise to go on mute before I do any sneezing fits. Okay, so let's get right into it, and let's talk about some of the new things we have here with NITRO Studio. Some of the cool new things. Now, some of it ranges from pretty minimal that can, maybe it's a small feature that can make a big difference, or maybe it's a bigger feature. But one thing I'll start with is the ability to change the borders of the quick launch. Something you probably don't think about even wanting to do very often, but it does give you a little bit of a different look and feel for the quick launch. And you can get to that through the branding app. And in the branding app, you have an option for the quick launch settings. I believe it is in here. It's in this extended settings JSON area. If I can find it, there it says quick launch right at the top. It's the first one. And just to kind of parse through this real quick, there's the border. So there's a right border, and then there's a top border. And the three things we can manage with the border are the color, the width, and the style. So we can do a couple different things to change up the color. Looks like, what's it doing? Okay, color. Let me try again here. There we go. Okay, gotta get my cursor in there. So I'm gonna do a color of orange. And you gotta be within those brackets here. So that's kind of important to be within those quotation marks to see it. Width, you want to give it, you do want to give it like a width to see how it looks, right? So it's usually in pixels, and you can do it by 5px. Style, I'm just going to leave blank. It's defaulting to solid. For color, on the top, we can do something like black. I'm going to do width, similar width of 5px. Now, 5 pixels is going to look pretty big, but again, I always like to kind of be a little, I guess what you could say, like overshow it in a way, so you really see the difference. It really pops, right? Because you normally probably wouldn't have like a 5 pixel border to your quick launch, but and the off chance you do want that, you can, and it might give you, oh, there it goes, it popped right away. That's actually not too bad, 5 pixels. But you can see there's the black on the top, orange down the side of the colors we changed. So it does give it a little bit of a pop, a little bit of something a little different to show in the modern UI. Now we have this for the modern UI, the quick launch for the classic UI for our on-prem customers, or maybe on older 365 sites that are still in the classic mode. It's a little trickier we don't have this function there. It's trickier to manage that quick launch from that perspective. So we do have it for the modern UI, and we do have it for a 365, where you can manage that quick launch settings. And of course, I chose orange and black because it's Halloween. Happy Halloween again. and just kind of gives it that little orange and black feel to it. Looks like a Reese's Pieces to me, which one of my a Reese's peanut butter cup actually. That's one of my favorite candies. Um, if you have a favorite candy, feel free to pop it into the chat. I'd love to hear what you guys have as a favorite out there. Um, okay, so that's the quick launch. We got the branding around that we can manage. Again, it's here in this extended JSON setting area of the modern UI, modern branding web part, which in most cases you're going to see here on your quick launch. If you don't see it here, it's going to be in Nitro Apps. You just go to your Nitro Apps page, and when you pop open branding, you have the option for classic and modern. On if you have a modern site, you can do the modern branding. So that's how you get to it to make that change. Another thing we released here in this latest group of releases for NITRO Studio is the ability to copy a tab or a section from a Nitro form. So one of the cool things about it is that you can fill out a form, fill out a section as detailed as you want it to be with column permissions and validations and all that good stuff. And then you can simply right click on it. There's a copy button right here, copy. We're going to create a new tab. So we have to create this new tab over here. And then we can right click, paste. And you can see it's got all the content from that first tab in that next tab. Now that can be useful if you want to play around with settings, if you want to play around with trying permissions on a tab. You can have this tab completely hidden in a sense from your end users and publish it and try it out on your own, just make it visible to yourself, see how it works. If you want to change around, that's important if you want to change around validations, if you want to change around column permissions, if you want to change around look and feel. So there's a lot of options there for you to play with it, even on a live form without, potentially impacting the existing form that users are actually using. And or if you want to just start from scratch, recreate it and say, okay, you know what, let's try to rebuild this employee tab all completely, but I'm just going to copy it as is and remove certain things. That's another, the use case you could have there for it. This is going to work for sections as well. So if I switch this over to sections and did the same thing of copying like the staff section and dragging over a new form control of the new section, I put it kind of at the bottom here and right click and paste. Same idea. It's going to give me the same things. It even changes the name for me. So it changed that name of that section right there. So you can see it's got that, all those same settings, all those same fields. We just go and modify them as we need to, and then we can either replace the original or just say, you know what, that's not working. I'm just going to go ahead and delete these additional tabs and sections and do something different. So that I thought was a pretty cool feature, like copy over those things. Now, one question I got from our internal staff when I was showing this was can you copy over a tab from one form to another form? I did test that, and unfortunately that is not working right now. So I'm going to see if we can put that on our list of potential improvements down the line to see how we could copy over like this form, this tab from this form into a completely different form. Right now it only works within the context of the same form. But if you wanted to push it, like I said, I'll talk to my team and see if we can push it to other forms down the road. Now, importantly, of course, you want to have the same column names and et cetera, but especially if it's across lists or across different forms, but it's something that doesn't quite work yet. But down the line, another thing we're going to be looking at. Staying on forms for just a minute, another thing we've done here is the adding support for date diff business hours and date diff hours functions. Those are going to come through the form event actions options we have down here, where we could use the date diff business hours or date diff hours to calculate a field, which is typically going to be coming from this update form controls action, where we have a mapping. And let's see if we, I think it's if we go in here, here's where you can see them. So if you click in the value, you got the date diff business hours and date diff hours. Now that's going to just calculate differences between different times based on if it's calendar hours and days or if it's business hours and days. It's really hours, so it's going to count. But business hours, of course, as we know, excludes Saturday and Sunday for the most part for most customers. So it would exclude those days as well in full, as well as the off time for the hours. Now, I didn't test this, but I would imagine it is coming from the site regional settings that you have for your site. You have the option within each site to each SharePoint site to determine what are the business hours, or basically at the site collection level, but you can determine what are the business hours for that site collection, and it would honor that setup they have there. So that's how you do that. You want if you want to on the fly, because I think these are functions we already have available in custom actions and workflows. Just gives you another place to run that calculation without creating potentially another update on the form, which, as we know, sometimes that can cause problems. You want to do as much processing without updates to the form as you can. So it just gives you another ability to do that. Okay, I'll talk about list search briefly. We did make some more enhancements on list search to make give you more options on it. Actually, I will, I'll take a peek at it. So there is a search tickets web part here we can play around with. So again, it's border control, background color. Of course, you've always had the option of adding a gradient here to the web part, which I think I must have done in a previous workshop. You can see one of the other previous workshops, I looked at the ticket search header, and we were able to do some more changes around that. But now there's some more options for the border control and background color of buttons. And so you just kind of look through and find the buttons section. You can see right here, here's buttons, and we could change the buttons. Now we're talking about these buttons here, like this little button that you can see in the background. These buttons right here that are a little more prominent. If we go and change those, you'll notice that there's kind of this blue with a white background right now. But if we come over here to the extended settings JSON, scroll down to where it says buttons, we can give it a different background color, right? So we give it a black background color, and we could give it a hover color, which let's do like a dark gray might work. Let's try dark gray, not gray, and then hover color. I'll just leave that one alone for now. Or hover color is probably gonna be the font. So let's do black font, and color I think is going to be not sure what that one is. I believe it's white. All right, let's try that. And let's give it another refresh. There you go. So now you got the black and the white, and it's got the, well, hover over, we need to fix up that, but you can play around with it and kind of get what works for you. So if you want to change around the color, make it a little more, darker, maybe match up with your business's colors, you have, again, more options around the UI to make those changes. So a lot of what you see here with the extended settings JSON is about UI, is about what is the user interface, which in a lot of ways the user interface is, we talk about things in programming or development called user interface and user experience, UI and UX. And the user interface informs what the user experience is going to be, right? So the more control you have over the user interface, the more control you have over the experience that user has with using the product. So that's just a little, conceptual thing that we work through here, is to make sure whatever the interface options are can improve the experience for the users who are accessing these products. All right, so after list search, we're going to skip down to list view. And on our list view web part, we've done some things similar to a lot of other stuff. It's a lot of UI things, a lot of some of it's done through JavaScript. But one important one that I think is not, it's actually in the UI of the graphical UI of the settings page, is to rename the list views here, right? So if we have an all items list view, that's kind of the typical SharePoint default all items, right? So all items in the list gets the all items view. But if we wanted to change that, we could change the display name. So now if you update Nitro, you'll see you have this option for display name. And if you want to change that display name, because previously you only had the option to show what was the actual name of the view. And you could go and change the name of the view. Sure, that's fine. But in some cases, you might want to leave that view just on the SharePoint list as what the view is. But then in the context of this web part, this particular list view web part, you want to change it. Now, obviously, you don't have to, right? You can always leave it the way it is. There's no requirement to change it. But since we're, this particular instance, we're using our help desk. We want to do tickets. We can do it, change it to all tickets instead of all items. And then when we save the settings, it'll keep the all items name here, I believe. Let me change. Let me save that. See what it does. And yeah, okay. So that's the view name. I mean, that's the view configuration name is all tickets. So it keeps the name of the view is still all items as it should be, but the display name is going to be all tickets. So when we go and see this on our all tickets view, which is going to be over here, all tickets right here. And you see it says all tickets instead of all items, which probably makes more sense. I mean, it keeps it consistent, internally consistent. So we don't even have to go back and mess with that SharePoint list view at all, right? The SharePoint list view on the list settings page is going to stay all items now and forever. That's great. Leave it. But on the view that people see, now you've got the option to show it as all tickets, which keeps it kind of consistent in the UI up here because we created an all open tickets view and unassigned tickets view, et cetera, et cetera. Now we can change that all items view to show as an all tickets view, even though behind the scenes it's still all items. All right, so that was the big, one of the big changes we did for list view, which I thought was useful. And of course, last time, in case you missed it, for folks who are on the call, there are some things we did with list view. As I always like to re-mention because I think it's a really cool workaround we have now to support large list views of over 5,000 items, right? So now you don't have to worry about that 5,000 list view threshold. If you come in to edit the list view web part, there is a option, I think, on the view level, is large list, yes or no, and you can choose to set as yes, and that's going to allow you to show the view. Now, again, I know I've talked about that in the past, but I always like to show it. All right, one other enhancement before we jump into custom actions and workflows, so another UI enhancement, was in the color KPI, and there was an option, actually there's an option to show an up and a down arrow. Now, I was talking to my team because I actually don't see it here, and if you don't see it there either, let me know. But there was an update to release a new icon options within the color KPI web part. I'll get more details on that and understand if there's a bug in my system. Maybe it's just my site; it just wasn't showing. But keep an eye out for that. If you look at the icon options available for your color KPI, you should see an up and a down arrow as new options, kind of similar to what you see here. Although I guess they'd be separate, not together like they are right here. All right, and then the next thing I want to show you is the new options we have in our custom actions, and these are also there for workflows. So I'll just show you them in the context of custom actions. And what these are more options for date time calculations. So a lot of times you have needs to calculate dates between times. Maybe you have a need to actually pull out the actual day of a week, which now with these newer releases of Nitro, you have the option of getting that information. So if we scroll down on here, you'll see there's a bunch new date, there's that date diff hours I mentioned. We're in 4 event actions. I think we put them here a while back. But if you keep scrolling down, you see you have these things like day, month, year, weekday number, week number. These are all things that we can now pull from a placeholder or an actual date in the system to say, what day is it? Meaning, is it a Monday? Is it a Tuesday? Is it a Thursday? Is it a Friday? What month is it? Is it January, February, March, April, May? What year is it? Of course, 2021, 22, 23.
weekday, I think, is a similar thing. I have to, I have to try these out, kind of see what the difference is. But that's day might be the actual number of the day, whereas weekday is what I'm talking about with the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday uh, item. Weekday, of course, would be like 1 for Sunday, 2 for Monday, 3 for Tuesday, etc. And then week number just takes the week number throughout the year. There's a week number 1 through week 52 of the year, and a lot of times that's useful for calculating out certain things, or at least getting some reporting metrics or information out of the system. Day of the year, I would imagine, gives you the uh, what day of the year is it? Is it the 200th day of the year? Is it the 300th day of the year? Is it 350th day of the year? Uh, you know, etc. And then hour, minute, of course, would require that date field to have a time element to it to get the hour and the minute, but it's going to ignore the date, right? It's going to ignore that it's 10/20/31 at 2023, but it will pull out that it's 2:22. I don't know if you can see that on my computer. I don't know if you can see my bar, but it's 2:22 p.m. Eastern time. So the minute would be 2, or the hour would be 2, or maybe 14, and the minute would be 22. So it pull that information out. And then, of course, you get the differentials, right? So the differentials are going to be how many days between two dates, how many hours between two dates. Of course, you need to have that time element. Otherwise, it's going to look at the midnight of each of those days and just give you, 24 hours times however many days it is. Minutes, same thing. You want to make sure you have a time element to the date that you're inputting there, whether it's through a placeholder, like a column placeholder, or some kind of date field that you have in there, and seconds as well. So you can actually get the number of seconds between two dates, which might be useful in some cases. So there's some new date time features, the date time functions that we have in our tool to help manage those things, help manage those calculations. And I think that pretty much covers the main things I wanted to cover. Oh, actually, one other thing. I'm sorry. There is one other thing I want to talk about with relation to custom actions. Is that you might see this advanced tab here now. And in the advanced tab, you have the, okay. In the advanced tab, you have the option to map all matching columns. Now, that's going to be useful for like a copy function, right? So if you want to copy one item to another item, you can map all matching columns, which means the internal name matches, the display name matches, and you can in data type matches, right? So it's got the same internal name of priority, and it's got the same data type, which could be choice. And as long as there's a priority field, choice field on one list, and priority choice field on the other list, or even if it's on the same list, then it's going to match by default. Then you can map all matching columns from one item to another item in a copy function. So it makes it really easy to do that copy function, to duplicate things. So it just another way to make life a little easier when copying things out into different across one list or across multiple lists. Yeah, that pretty much covers what I wanted to touch on today. Keep an eye on our version log, keep an eye on our release notes. We keep that as up to date as we can. As soon as we get a version update release, we'll put the notes out there. Sometimes we combine multiple releases in one version log, just because there's a lot of like minor bug fixes we're doing as we go. Little things that people, again, people like you that come to us and say, oh, this isn't quite working right. Okay, we can fix that bug, and maybe it's a specific thing to a specific scenario or whatever. But we release those all the time. Continuously updating, continuously improving. But yeah, if there's any feedback or anything else that you want to see in our product for a feature set, let us know. After the end of this workshop, there is going to be a survey that you can fill out to say what you want to see next. Some different topics. We're always looking for good topics to cover. We might be doing a lot of like revisiting things as we go along here, because we have released a number of updates with workflows, number of updates with custom actions, with forms. So we might want to go back and just kind of revisit the forms tool in general with all those different elements that we've added into it now. So, look for those workshops being scheduled. But if you have any comments or anything you want to see specifically, certainly let us know. And happy to take that under advisement and see if that's something we can fit into the schedule for our workshops. But again, appreciate everyone coming, spending their time with us today. Hope you have a great Halloween. I hope you have go trick or treating. If you have kids, I hope you go have fun with them. I know I'm going to go have fun with mine. But Krista, any parting comments here?
Oh, I just wanted to say thanks again for walking us through all the updates. I think, it's great to see that as we progress with this, so many of these updates do come from customer requests, and I love that. So keep the feedback coming, everyone. It's really great to get your feedback and hear what you want to see, hear what you want to have these workshops focused on. That's been just tremendous feedback, as I know James said. And we really appreciate you all being here today.
All right. Thank you all. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks.